Supposed to have a VideoCoin founder, Halsey Minor here, who's spoken to this gathering in a couple of instances. Halsey, of course, for those of you who don't know, started CNET, and then he's also been an early and constant serial entrepreneur in other areas, co-founder of Salesforce, created what became Google Voice, and then went to the blockchain space, creating BitReserve, which became Uphold. We worked with them in 2015 on the Voxelis token, one of the early, I think the first VR related ICO. And then last year, he started VideoCoin, which raised $50 million. And Kellam came on. And so Kellam, you've known Halsey far longer than me, and I've known him for 2 decades.
Yes, I have indeed. I'll tell you, being in charge of the ICO for VideoCoin was, my job was made much easier by working for Halsey Minor. I think that one of the things that is lost in a lot of our discussions around creating protocols and creating the next foundations for this industry is the fact that we as an industry have a responsibility to create business disruption that is actually tangible, that you can point to, and that has evidence of use cases. And we're, in general, at VideoCoin, we're referring to 2019 as the year of the enterprise. And the reason we're doing that is we've gotten enough runway now where we're gonna have to face up to the App Store, those of us who are in the ICOs. And we're gonna have to deliver applications that are provable, that are disruptive, and that are actually delivering business benefits. And working for Halsey is a challenge, but that is what he's focused on primarily, is actual use cases. Some of you may be familiar with Salesforce.com, which was another company that our founder co-founded. You know, and Salesforce.com was initially successful because the application was 1/10 the cost of Siebel, which at the time was the 800-pound gorilla in CRM. But the future of Salesforce, and the reason why it's an $80 billion company today, is actually the platform. They built the platform in an open structure, Halsey and Larry Ellison, who were the 2 initial founders, so that other people could build on top of Salesforce. And that's what's allowed the ecosystem to grow. If anyone was aware, last December, the Salesforce user conference was 140,000 people that showed up. There are now over 100 apps built on top of Salesforce.com that allows for an incredible ecosystem of CRM-centric business applications. So at VideoCoin, which is very similar, the business model is similar to Salesforce, initially we will be 80% less cost than AWS, Google, and Microsoft, who are what we call the big 3 in the cloud world. And that's how we'll attract the initial companies, such as Paramount, 20th Century Fox, ATT, DirecTV, ATT. These are all our advisors. They're begging us to get this platform built on the blockchain so that they can realize 80% cost reduction over today's cloud hegemony. But moreover, we're building it on an open source platform with open APIs. Now, we're using the same model that some of you all are familiar with Filecoin, Storage, Golem, some of these other content companies, which is we're using unused capacity in the marketplace. So in effect, VideoCoin is actually a decentralized video encoding, storage, and distribution content system that takes all cloud-based services and turns it into an efficient algorithmic market using a blockchain that we're creating, a new blockchain with a native token called the VideoCoin. So for those of you that aren't familiar, currently there are 2.1 billion people that watch online video now every day, and it's growing by 25%. So working for Halsey is always an interesting adventure, but we're going after established enterprise businesses, and we're looking to make a major disruption. Many of you are probably familiar with Jeff Bezos' famous line, "Your margin is my opportunity." Mr. Bezos has done very well for himself. He and Halsey are actually friends from way back. They started at Merrill Lynch together, and now Jeff went and founded Amazon. Halsey went and founded CNET.
They were originally looking to co-found the company, right?
They were. So I refer to Halsey and Jeff as frenemies. And if any of you have noticed, in the last 6 months, there was a big article published, and they took a picture of a Blockbuster store. Some of us in this room probably still remember Blockbuster. It was a big part of our Friday night, going into deciding what movie we were going to watch this weekend, and then holding your breath to see if the movie was actually in stock. There's one store left now. It was just published yesterday. And the main article had a picture of a Blockbuster store with a giant line through it. And it said, Halsey Minor is about to blockbuster Jeff Bezos. Now, Jeff and Amazon didn't respond to that press, but Halsey keeps poking him in hopes that he will respond, because it would actually validate this cocky upstart and how we're going to take over the cloud industry with a blockchain alternative.
So right now, this is the driver of all profit for Amazon, the largest company in the world, and it's made Jeff the wealthiest man in the world, now passing Bill Gates. So how long, walk us through how this chicken and egg works. How long is it going to take to be able to get large data centers like the University of Illinois, or a government in Venezuela or Sweden to be able to say, we can make money at this? And then on the other side of the equation, how long is it going to take Fox and Paramount to say, this is a reliable solution, versus when we hate to go and write that check to Amazon, knowing they're then going to compete against us with Amazon Prime and Amazon Video?
Yep, so a couple data points there. The one thing we always come back to is there's been lots of healthy discussion around Bitcoin and our industry in general. But the one thing that Bitcoin has proven that is, to use a word, immutable, is if you give people the opportunity to use a computer and to do some funny transaction that actually pays them in some funny crypto, what they will do is they will take that crypto and go to an exchange and turn it into fiat. And they will then take that fiat money and they will buy more computers and create more power and make more money. So from that perspective, the genie is out of the bottle, and the blockchain movement is well underway. To your initial point, we're probably looking at, we finished our $50 million raise. We are rapidly hiring. We have the entire team from Intel that Halsey has hired. The team we have, our developers, developed the initial distributed video encoding, storage, and delivery solution from Intel. Intel was going to run that as a separate business unit utility until they realized it would conflict with their customers. They then sold the infrastructure platform to Facebook. So if any of you wondered, why in the world did video suddenly show up on Facebook one day? That's why. So our development team that we've hired at VideoCoin was the initial team at Intel that built that platform. So we have an MVP already. It uses our parent company, which is Live Planet. For those of you not familiar with Live Planet, this is Halsey's other company, which is a completely immersive, telescopic, 360-degree virtual reality company. The camera we produce, we call the Little Monster. But in the media industry, the virtual reality is a next giant wave of entertainment and of value-added services as well. We've got that platform built. When we actually put it into production, we were using Amazon Web Services, as most media companies do, to encode, store, and deliver our video. For one camera running 24 hours a day, we got a bill from Amazon at the end of 1 month. It was $30,000 for one camera running 24/7. That's not only rapacious pricing from the cloud oligarchs, it shuts down the virtual reality industry before it has a chance to get started. So that was the reason we started VideoCoin Network and looked for a blockchain alternative to the traditional systems that are in power today. Having said that, we have 12 months of build to do. We are building rapidly right now, but in effect, The Video Coin Network is a decentralized encoding, storage, and distribution system that is going to be very difficult to build. Lots of companies from Akamai to BitTorrent have tried to build these decentralized services, but until Bitcoin came out, there really wasn't the opportunity to do this. So we are 12 months away on building. To your second question, how do we get the major studios to turn over their content to us? You know, there's an interesting inflection point as the consolidation in the media continues. Most of you probably aware that DirecTV AT&T just acquired Time Warner. The Department of Justice is potentially going to fight that merger. But having said that, consolidation is stifling innovation in the media industry. The more that the large players combine forces to create efficiencies in their business models, they completely stifle the ability. If anyone in this room is a video creator, you would realize that when you can't call up AWS or Google or Microsoft and say, I have an exciting new idea to release content to our customers. We'd like to work with you on crafting this solution. Not interested. The answer you get is pay your bill and be thankful that we exist. So we are not only creating an 80% cost reduction to all the major studios, but we're also providing for innovation for the next YouTube, the next Hulu, the next Netflix. So Video Coin Network, using the blockchain, is actually a palette that you can build upon, which we believe is going to dramatically revolutionize the industry. So when you ask me of the studios, they're begging us to get our platform finished. They do not want to write these checks to Amazon and Microsoft anymore. And furthermore, in a poke in their eye, Amazon is now their competitor. So many of you may know Amazon produces their own content now off the backs of the bills they charge to the major media studios. So there's a real-life business problem that we're using this blockchain solution to solve, and we believe 2019 is going to be the year of the enterprise because all of us have a responsibility to our industry to have use cases in 2019 that we can point to demonstrable benefits in the real-world economy if this industry is to thrive and deliver the benefits we've all talked about.
So let's flash forward to the end of 2019. So we're talking 18 months from now. What does the blockchain's sort of relationship with enterprise look like at the end of the year of the enterprise? And how has VideoCoin contributed to that?
It's a great question, Michael. I think that we'd all agree that 2017 was the year of the ICO. Anybody that had the word blockchain in your white paper basically was able to raise some money or in some cases a lot of money. I think 2018 is realistically going to go down as the year of regulation. We've certainly had lots of discussion about that previous. The U.S. effectively shut down utility tokens. After March 7th, when the FinCEN ruling came down, we were unable to raise money from U.S. Investors, even if they were accredited. So we think 2019 will be the year of the enterprise, and what I believe at the end of 2019 is we will have, hopefully, we will have situations, for instance, like Ethereum uses consensus. Consensus is their model that is, for lack of a better word, a blockchain consulting group. They're working with businesses as they try to develop applications that have a life in the real world economy. I think by the end of 2019, I think it's safe to say that what you'll see, specifically from VideoCoin, is a major disruption of the cloud oligarchs that currently are controlling our media, and you'll see a real revolution in the industry as a switch from monopolistic, centralized companies to a decentralized, think of it as an Uber or an Airbnb for video delivery. You'll see it as a decentralized movement where many of the miners in the VideoCoin network are making a lot of money processing these files instead of writing these large checks to Amazon, Google, and Microsoft. Industry-wide, I think we need to see use cases that we can point to in 2019 around the insurance industry, around medical industry, or certainly around banking and finance. I mean, you know, what really amazes me, Michael, I've been in this industry since 2011 when I bought my first Bitcoin. No, I didn't hold it for those of you in the audience, which is why I'm still working for Halsey. But I think that the year in 2019, we absolutely have to fulfill the promise of actually using blockchain to disrupt real-world industries. There's a dichotomy right now in our industry. We have those of us on the left-hand side who, for lack of a better word, I'll call the blockchain extremists. We're creating new protocols, we're creating new tokens, we're creating new foundations, redefining a new world. But we have to remember that on the other side of that line of demarcation is the real world economy. And they are neither ready for our volatile crypto assets to enter into their space, nor do they really understand what it is we're doing. So until we break that line of demarcation, and I think the only way that's going to happen is through stable coins that are backed by fiat currencies that can actually plug into the existing enterprises and the existing supply chains around the world and make real-time impact, we will largely be viewed as what we are right now, which is roughly a $240 billion hobby project. We have to have use cases that we can point to with demonstrable benefits. And I think that will be all of our goals for 2019, and I think many companies are working very hard to strive towards that end.
So this will pivot us into the conversation on the title, which is creating this trillion-dollar marketplace. So video is a very large market. 80-something% of the internet is video. But every market there is, trillion-dollar markets for, automotive, medical, real estate. One by one, there are disruptors afoot trying to disrupt and innovate in these markets. And there are incumbents who are going to face the so-called Innovators Dilemma. Let's go back 20 years. We had the same thing happen in the dot-com world. And, people laughed at Amazon. I actually have a friend who was an angel investor in Seattle during that period, and he threw Jeff Bezos out of his office and said, selling books on the internet is the stupidest idea I've ever heard. And he literally could have bought a substantial chunk of Amazon for like $50,000 or $100,000 and just threw the guy out of his office. So again, obviously, it's my understanding Netflix at one point, pretty much was trying to sell itself to Blockbuster, and Blockbuster turned it down, and now of course they're 100 times what Blockbuster ever got. So are we going to see a similar path where, we obviously went from the 2017, rocket ship ride to the 2018 reality check. There was a lot of the internet is dead and get these crappy dot-coms out of my site in 2001, 2002. And great companies like Amazon, eBay, Yahoo, all were laughed at as like, okay, when are you going to go out of business and, give it back to the incumbents? And obviously those are the biggest companies in the world now in many cases. So what is going to be sort of the path in the next, let's say, if 2019 is the year of the enterprise, what's 2020, 2021? I mean, where is this going to play out to get to this trillion-dollar plus market? And how will the Amazons of the world, who have gone from like the disruptor 20 years ago to the establishment today, react?
Yeah, so I think that we all need to remember, for those of us who were in the Silicon Valley during the dot-com revolution, and by the way, the zombie apocalypse that happened when most of these developers realized, wait, you mean we actually have to deliver an application? There was $9 trillion deployed during the dot-com. I mean, think about that. $9 trillion were put into that market via IPOs for everything from pets.com, for those of us who remember the sock puppet logo they had, to Webvan, which was going to deliver groceries to your home, etc. And of that $9 trillion, and there were a lot of blood loss when the music stopped, and 98% of those companies completely and utterly failed, taking all their investors' money with them. what we have to remember from that period is that period of time, which was largely viewed as a bubble, like the bubble we're in now with blockchain, created, I would argue, 5 of the most important companies certainly of the United States. And I would argue Google, I would argue Salesforce.com, which my founder was a co-founder of. I would argue eBay. I would argue Amazon, and I would argue Netflix, although Netflix was a different scenario. They had an existing business. Reed Hastings went to his board, for those of you who remember, and said, delivering DVDs in the mail is going to kill us. We have to move to streaming video. The board fired Reed Hastings over that. They didn't want to shake up their revenues, but he ultimately came back, much like Steve Jobs at Apple, and Netflix surged into the leadership position they are now. But those 5 companies are the global leading companies that comprise a large portion of America's GDP. And, I hear so much criticism about how much money is being thrown at our industry right now, but I will say this. In the last 12 months, I believe we reached $9 billion, roughly, of equity raised for our ICOs, both utilities and securities. But we have to remember, that's the way capitalism works.
So that's 1/10 of 1% that was deployed in the dot-coms.
It's 1/10 of 1% of the dot-coms. So I believe we do still have a lot of runway in this industry. But moreover, you can't handpick who the winners are going to be. You must invest in all the crazy ideas to have the actual life-changing monsters like Salesforce and those others to emerge. Okay, so having said that, to your initial question, why might we be a trillion-dollar industry? Well, if you look at it from a macroeconomic standpoint, if you took equities, gold, as well as stocks, it's roughly a $200 trillion market. Even and we know that most of the brightest are moving into our space, both developers, business leaders, as well as PR and marketing. This industry has captured the imagination of many of the folks in our economy. If you assume that simply 2% of that GDP ends up in the crypto space, then we're a $4 trillion industry. I mean, look, today I think we're at around 249 market cap, so I mean a 4 times growth puts us at 2 trillion, so we're not that far off. But I want to reiterate that until we, and by we I mean investors as well as the companies that are backing these projects, create demonstrable projects that are disrupting current industries, and people can point to that project and say, that's successful, that's delivering benefit to consumers, we'll struggle to get there. We have tons of protocols, we have tons of better mousetraps. 2017, we had great white papers and lots of marketing hype. Now it's the time for us to actually deliver on some of the promises, and we believe that VideoCoin will be one of those companies that emerges from this.
And again, parallels to 1998 and 1999, when you had, these gigantic valuations based on just promises and air. Broadcast.com, for example, Mark Cuban's company, skyrocketed to a $6 billion valuation on about $2 million of sales.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right, they did. And I would like
and
to,
losses.
And losses. I would like to add that the ability to create digital assets and send those over the internet is just as profound as '94 when we realized that you could actually send information over the internet. And for those of us who were in the Valley during those years, remember, there was an initial ramp up when the excitement of the internet began. That then tailed off, much like the topping off we've had with Ethereum, Bitcoin, and some of the other currencies, as well as NIM. But that initial excitement wore off, and then there was the massive run-up that occurred in the dot-com as companies began to establish and develop. I believe that in the later quarters of this year, we're probably going to be in the same scenario. I think the initial excitement about blockchain has worn off, and I think now we're ready for, as Mike Novogratz, one of our major investors, suggests, the herd is coming. traditional Wall Street investors, traditional Wall Street money has now understood that blockchain is a fundamental transition. It's the Industrial Revolution 4.0, and as that money moves into our industry, I believe we're going to have a large growth spurt for the last quarter of this year. That's our prediction.
Great. So I'm going to turn it over to Stuart to run around and get some questions from the audience. Stuart, can you? Who has questions for Kellam?
Yep, got a microphone here, so anybody who has a question, just raise your hand and I'll bring the mic over to you. Any questions? Don't be shy. Questions? Yep, in the back. So just tell us your company and your name also.
Yes, Sean Barger, Equilibrium. I'm just curious specifically about how you're going to move 4K video around to do video coin.
4K video.
I'm sorry, so Sean, was that your yeah. So it's a great question. The first iteration of our AlphaNet will actually be, like most of Halsey Miner's other companies, we will be our own first customer. So the first customers that are going to run on the VideoCoin network is actually Live Planet. Live Planet, as I mentioned earlier, is the first true stereoscopic 360-degree immersive virtual reality company. The file sizes of those virtual realities make 4K look like children's work. I promise you that the computational intensity of those data files is beyond massive. That will be our first alpha client, and we believe that once we can handle the size and magnitude of transcoding, storing, and delivering those files, whether it's live streaming or pre-record, we will easily be able to handle the volume of a 4K. Now, I should add, because this may be more to what your point was, we are actually not going to be running the video encoding, storage, and delivery on the blockchain. The blockchain's not ready for that yet. We have to deliver sub-second speeds, so our delivery system runs off blockchain. The blockchain in our industry, in our development, will be used for basically the algorithmic functions. So the coin itself, the video coin, will actually put bids out for processing information or storing information or delivering information. It will then measure productive work done by the miners and then authorize payment in video coin to them. So it's a proof of stake model that we're creating because we realize you cannot run certainly 4K as well as other resolutions over the blockchain. It's not fast enough, it can't process fast enough. So that's our solution.
Great. One final question, maybe? Yep, over here. And tell us, I know where you're from, but you tell everybody else.
Roger Aiken from Forbes, London. I just wondering, could you explain how the users will be charged for this and what the tariff is?
Yeah, so we'll have, is the media allowed to ask questions?
Of course. This is, we have media all the time at our conferences, and so you can certainly talk to Forbes. And
yes. It's a great question. We'll operate very similar to Red Hat, if you're familiar at all with Red Hat. So Red Hat is a company actually headquartered out of North Carolina. They provide services and support for Linux, which is an open source software project, but they have fees associated with that by wrapping value around an open source code. VideoCoin Network will be very similar. We'll have small, but we'll have fees for utilizing our network. And if we succeed in our venture, last year, just for those in the audience that are curious, Amazon Web Services published their earnings. They made $17.4 billion simply from AWS. Now, Microsoft and Google do not publish their cloud breakout figures, but they're very close, second and third position. So there's approximately about $120 billion a year being spent right now on video processing on the internet. Should we capture some percentages of that, which we believe we will, the token, VideoCoin token, will potentially do very well in the overall market. So that's two-pronged approach. We will charge fees, small fees, for utilizing our network. Companies like Fox, Paramount, et cetera, will own VideoCoin and purchase on the network.
But pretty much it's going to be like Bitcoin. It's going to be determined by the number of users and the processing power there, and the amount of bids that are accepted. So if, like, let's say Amazon charges, I'll just use a simple number, $1,000 per X, your model is that you'll eventually get it down to where it's $1,000 for Amazon and $200 for the VideoCoin enabled network. Maybe initially it's only $900, a 10% savings. But as the prices are determined by the market, we know they can't be higher than Amazon, how does that sort of economic engine work?
Yeah, so actually it's the inverse. In the very beginning, we have currently estimated that there are 20 million servers worldwide in data centers that are going underutilized. We consider these zombie compute power. When we tap into those, the initial, which by the way represents about $20 billion of capital expenditure waste currently in our industry, when we tap into those, the initial participants of the VideoCoin network will actually receive the biggest cost reductions. So if Amazon is charging $1,000 per X, we would be at 100 or 90 per X initially. Now that economic metric will move up in time as more media content is put on the blockchain through the VideoCoin network. But at the end of the day, if we end up competing with Amazon simply on the cost of power alone, which is what they would have to do to compete with a blockchain solution, that's a situation we'd be happy to be in.
Great. Kellam Ames, thank you very much.